Hey, welcome to our second level 2 statistical inference video. We're now going to chat about the plan. In our statistical cycle, PPDAC, the plan comes after we've written our problem. Right, well, the plan needs to include the following: our data source, our sampling method and our sample size, cleaning the data, and how the data is going to be analysed. So let's start with the data source. This is where we describe where the data was obtained and provide a link if possible. Please don't just say the teacher gave it to me. In the assessment, you will be given information about where the data came from, which you will use for your data source. All right, your sampling method and the sample size. Now in our next two videos, we're going to chat about sampling methods. So this is going to make a little bit more sense after you've watched those. But basically, we need to decide which sampling method is best suited to take a sample that is as reliable and representative of the population as possible. We need to discuss how we took the sample, any issues you had, and why did we choose that method. And finally, we need to discuss the sample size and why you chose that size. We'll chat about that in the next couple of videos. When we come to cleaning the data, New Zealand Grapher will automatically clean the data. This means that any data values which are invalid, missing, or errors are removed before we take our sample. And we're going to discuss this in our plan. Finally, how the data will be analysed. Well, we're going to use a program called NZ Grapher. And this is going to draw out dot plots and box and whisker graphs and create a list of all the appropriate summary statistics that you're going to need for your investigation. They include the minimum value, the lower quartile, the median and mean, the upper quartile, the maximum value. There's a new statistic we're going to talk about shortly in one of the upcoming videos called the standard deviation, and it also tells us our size of our sample. So let's pop out of here and go into NZ Grapher. So when you load up NZ Grapher, you'll get a screen that might look like this to start with. I've chosen a data source called sharks. So I have a list of sharks here, which is a list of 700 sharks. No, not 700, I got that wrong. 2,527 sharks that have been collected over a few years. We've got information about their sex, what year it was caught, tagged and released, and the total length of the shark and the fork length, which is the length and tail, I believe. So what we're going to do is we are going to take a sample. We'll do this again in the next few videos, but just so you get familiar, we're going to take a sample and break it up into their gender, which is their sex. Now notice what's happened here. We've got 1,155 females, 1,355 males, and we've got 12 plus 5, 17 sharks where we were unable to determine their sex, or the sex was written down incorrectly, in error. So 17 sharks have been cleaned out. We're not going to use these 17 sharks, they've been cleaned out. So I'm just going to take a quick sample of 50 females and 50 males for now and click on sample. And then you will see now I've only got 100 sharks in my sample that I'm going to use in my investigation. Now, if we click down here on graph type, we can click dot plot and box and whisker. When we go to numerical 1, we must pick the variable we're investigating. Let's pretend we're investigating the length of the shark. And then in category 1, we're going to pick the gender, which are the two groups we've picked. So if I pick two groups, you can see now I've got my female sharks, 50 of them, and my male sharks, 50 of them. Now, if I click this box called summaries, there are all my statistics that I was just talking about previously for males and females. I could add a box plot, and I could change the title of the graph and talk about sharks, or an appropriate title, and click on update graph to give it a more appropriate title. Now it's ready to drag into my Google Doc and use in my investigation. Right, so coming back to my PowerPoint, we basically talked about our plan, which must consist of our data source, our sampling method, and our sample size, cleaning the data, and how we're going to analyze the data.